everyone, it's Mary Brownlee, licensed professional counselor. Today we're going to talk about the neurobiology of trauma. So this is the science of kind of how the brain and the body responds to threats and trauma in the environment. And also we're going to talk about some ways to help the body calm down after trauma and not be in a heightened state of stress all the time. This is very important for several reasons. If you recall from my adverse childhood experience video, a few videos back, we talked about the impact of toxic stress on the body over long periods of time. That's what this adverse childhood experience study showed, that those with high amounts of childhood trauma are much greater risk for things like mental health issues, substance abuse issues, but also physical problems like, higher chance for like strokes and heart attacks and early death and whatnot. And that's because of the buildup of the extremely high levels of stress running through the body for the majority of our lives when we're chronic levels of trauma have been going on in our lives. So that's why it's so important to address this, the science portion of trauma, so to speak, how it impacts our bodies and our brains, because as trauma survivors, oftentimes we are dealing with physical symptoms of stress and trauma, as well as the emotional and the mental symptoms. So today we'll be touching upon how it impacts our bodies and what we can do about it. So without further ado, let's get into it. And before I do, I wanted to mention too, you'll find the links for all of the information that I'm going over today down below in the description. So don't worry about it. If you're like, oh crap, I want to have a copy of this. Don't worry about it. There's all the information is below in the description, and you can get a copy of all these images that I'll be showing and all of the information as well. So no worries. And please do leave a like and subscribe as well if you found this information helpful. It helps my channel very much when I get feedback from you guys, so I know what to kind of put out in the future as well. So feel free to like and subscribe. That's very helpful as well. All right. So first we're going to talk about the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. So there's two different branches of the autonomic nervous system. This is the part of our body that's responsible for responding to threats, but then also calming down after a threat is gone. So the sympathetic nervous system is the part of our body that is kind of the threat detector. It is responding and mobilizing the body to do that fight or flight response, basically. So for example, if you're walking down the street and it's nighttime and you see an animal come out at you, from a bush, for example, you're definitely going to see that sympathetic nervous system immediately activate. Again, this is all without conscious thought. It just happens instantaneously as your body perceives the threat. And it's going to mobilize your body for, fighting. Perhaps you need to fight the animal off, running, fight, flight. So that's the fleeing or the running from the animal. There's also a freeze response. So, like that deer in the headlight response, so to speak, of just frozen. We've talked about the fourth trauma response is fawn, or like people pleasing and keeping the abuser happy. In this case, you probably would not be doing any fawning. You would be doing one of the first three. So yeah, that sympathetic nervous system is so important for mobilizing our body to survive, basically. It's a survival, response. And I like to think of it as like the gas pedal of our body. It's accelerating. It's the accelerator or the gas pedal in terms of keeping us safe. And then the parasympathetic nervous system is going to be the brake. So you have the accelerant or the gas pedal and the brakes. So they work together to kind of keep the body in a level of balance, for example. We need both. The problem becomes when your sympathetic nervous system is on all the time from chronic stress and trauma. Then we have a problem. It's not supposed to be on all the time at a high level. So we'll talk more about that in a minute. All right. So the central nervous system really is responsible for these two branches here. And again, the central nervous system's job is to determine what is threatening and what is not threatening. So really it's a combination of your brain and your central nervous system in tandem with that sympathetic nervous system that's figuring out what is threatening and what is not. Say if your best friend hops out from the bush, you might have a startle response with that sympathetic nervous system, but then you're like, oh, never mind. It's Bob. Bob, stop stop joking around. My goodness, it gave me a heart attack, and your brain will basically be able to say, oh, it's Bob, no threat. Whew, but yeah, if it's a coyote or a predator or something like that, yeah, your brain's going to remain on a high alert, because it knows it has to potentially respond. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the parasympathetic nervous system. So that is the part of the brain and the body that work to help calm us down. It's the braking system. We call it the rest and digest part of our nervous system. It's going to be really responsible for returning the body to a state of rest after the sympathetic nervous system gets activated. And, things like digestion, for example. Notice that a lot of trauma survivors have problems with things like IBS, Crohn's disease, bowel disorders, for example. That's no surprise, considering, again, if our parasympathetic nervous system is not really doing its job and we're in a chronic state of stress, we are going to have physical disorders of the body that's related to chronic stress. IBS. I've seen things like POTS, things like mast cell disorder, autoimmune disorders, chronic pain, fibromyalgia. So these are very commonly seen in trauma survivors. And again, it's related to those high levels of chronic stress that, again, tears down the body, weakens the body over time. It's not good for us to be in a chronic state of stress. Basically the gist of this is if we have chronic stress in our lives from being trauma survivors, it's important for us to learn how to regulate our nervous systems as an adult. That we can do. So I will be releasing a video very soon on a special breathing technique called the 4-7-8 breathing technique. And the reason why this is going to be so helpful is it activates the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is, again, part of that nervous system that helps to calm us down. So there's certain breathing techniques, yoga, for example, that the researchers have discovered are really helpful for activating that parasympathetic nervous system and helping the body calm down. So the vagus nerve, you ask. What else should I like to know about that as a trauma survivor? All right, so this vagus nerve, it causes the relaxation response in the body. The 4-7-8 breathing technique that I'll be releasing here shortly on my channel, that's good for like sleep, anxiety, for example, stress. So it's going to help lower anxiety and stress and help you sleep better. So again, that vagus nerve really responsible for activating that parasympathetic nervous system. It activates basically the rest, digest, and befriend parts of our system. So it also makes us better able to engage socially with others as well. So it's a very important part of our body's natural system. And it also affects things like the vagus nerve affects things like our emotional state, our heart rate. It regulates heart rate, so we don't have a high heart rate all the time. Inflammation levels in the body, blood pressure, digestion, safety and connection with others. And essentially, when we do certain skills like these breathing skills, and you're doing them on a more regular basis, essentially you're cueing the body for safety, that it is safe, and it can come out of that fight or flight, chronic stress, this circle that we get trapped in, so to speak, and it helps the body regulate and function optimally. So you want the body resting and functioning optimally, so that your body is not undergoing the effects of chronic wear and tear. And as I mentioned earlier, you can get things like strokes and heart attacks and even cancer and whatnot, early death, for example. So we want to help the body calm down and learn how to self-soothe and self-regulate and all of that. This is a skill we can learn to do as trauma survivors. So the breathing skill that I will be going over very shortly in another video, that 4-7-8 technique, that's going to be really helpful for helping our nervous systems learn to rest. So in a nutshell, this is just a short video that I wanted to begin to have a language to describe some of the impacts, the actual scientific and physical impacts on the body of chronic stress and trauma. And so I hope you found this helpful. Again, please leave a like, subscribe. All of this is so helpful. And I will be releasing that video very shortly on the 478 breathing technique too. So I hope you enjoy, and I will talk to you soon and see you in the next video. Take care.